Do you want to learn English? If yes, then watch this video until the very end, because it will help you understand English so much better than you think. Today, I will tell you the story of Reagan Haley, a single mother in Tulsa, Oklahoma, who called the police on the wrong man completely. But to understand why a simple neighbor terrified me so completely, we have to go back to the exact week I have first moved onto Sycamore Street. My name is Reagan Haley. I am 34 years old. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma with my 7-year-old daughter Lily in a small rented house. We moved there in March, right after my divorce, looking for something quieter, something safer, something that felt like a real, fresh start for both of us. The house had a small porch, a crooked mailbox, and a neighbor across the street named Dean Ashford, a quiet man in his late 30s. Dean kept to himself mostly. He mowed his lawn on Saturdays. He waved sometimes, small and careful, like he was not used to waving at anyone at all. For the first 2 weeks, I barely noticed him at all. I was busy unpacking boxes, starting a new job, and learning Lily's brand new school route. Then one evening, coming home very late from work, I noticed him sitting alone on his porch, watching the street, watching my house very specifically. I told myself it was nothing serious. Neighbors sit on porches sometimes. People watch the streets sometimes. That is simply what people do in quiet neighborhoods. But the next night, he was there again, same chair, same time, watching as I pulled into my driveway with Lily half asleep beside me. By the third night, I started parking my car further down the block, just to avoid walking past his house alone in the growing evening darkness. I mentioned it to my coworker Trevor Vorse during our lunch break one afternoon. He worked logistics with me, always friendly, always asking about my new place. "Sounds sketchy," Trevor said, stirring his coffee slowly and looking at me with concern. "You should keep an eye on him. Some guys get fixated fast." His words stuck with me longer than I expected them to. I started watching Dean's house the way he seemed to watch mine, fear slowly building. One Tuesday evening, I noticed his blinds move the exact moment I stepped outside my front door. I froze on my porch, heart pounding hard. I called the non-emergency police line that same night. An officer took my statement politely and said they would drive by more often, nothing more. 2 days later, it happened again, blinds shifting slightly, a shape near the window. I grabbed my phone and took 3 shaky photographs from my porch. I sent the photos to Trevor, needing someone to tell me I was not imagining things, needing someone to believe my growing fear was completely real. "That's definitely weird timing," Trevor wrote back quickly, adding another message right after. "Same time every night? That's not coincidence, Reagan. Someone is watching a schedule." His words, for some reason, made the fear feel worse instead of better, sitting heavy in my chest through another long, tired, and sleepless night. By the following week, I noticed something new happening. Dean's car idled outside his house every evening around 6, right when I usually got home. I started timing my arrivals differently on purpose, hoping to avoid him completely, hoping the pattern would simply stop if I stopped being predictable myself. It did not stop at all. If anything, it got worse. He was outside more, watching more, or at least that is what my frightened mind told me. I finally called the police again, this time bringing photographs, timestamps, and a full written account of every single evening I had quietly watched him. An officer named Detective Priya Shah came to my house personally the next afternoon. She sat across from me at my kitchen table, reviewing everything carefully and calmly. "We're going to talk to him," she said gently, folding her hands together on the table. "But Mrs. Haley, I want you to understand something before we do. People on court supervision sometimes have very rigid schedules," she explained slowly and carefully. "It might not be what you think it is at all." I did not understand what she meant until 2 full days later, when she called to explain what Dean Ashford had actually told the officers. Dean was 3 years sober from an addiction that had once cost him his job, his marriage, and nearly his entire life completely, she explained gently. His probation required strict evening check-ins with his sponsor by phone, always from his porch, always at the exact same time each and every evening. His porch was the only spot with strong enough cell signal for that call. His blinds moved because he adjusted them for light during those calls. His car idled because he warmed it before driving his sponsor to a support meeting 3 streets over. Every single evening, without exception or excuse ever. He had never once looked at my house on purpose, not even briefly. He was simply a frightened man trying desperately to stay alive one single day. I felt sick reading the detective's summary that afternoon. I had turned a man's fight for survival into evidence I had used against him unfairly. I knocked on his door that weekend, my hands trembling worse than they had during any of the long nights I had spent fearing him. "I owe you an apology," I said quietly, my voice shaking slightly in the evening air. "I thought you were watching me. I called the police." Dean stood there for a long moment, surprised, hurt, and strangely understanding all at once, like he had expected this exact reaction from someone eventually. "People get scared," he said finally, leaning against his doorframe. "I understand why. I just wish I could have explained it before things got this far." We talked for almost an hour on his porch that evening, both of us more honest with each other than either of us had been in months. He told me about the year he lost everything he had. I told him about my divorce, my fear, my constant need to protect Lily alone. Something shifted quietly between the two of us that night on the porch, small but real, understanding that only comes from admitting shared, honest fear. Over the following weeks, Dean started walking Lily to the bus stop with me some mornings. Nothing romantic, just steady, quiet, dependable kindness between us. He fixed my crooked mailbox one afternoon without even asking. He waved every single morning now, easy and certain, no longer careful like a stranger. I found myself looking forward to seeing him each day. Something I never expected after everything that had happened between our two houses that spring. But the fear that started this whole story never actually ended. It only moved somewhere else entirely. Somewhere I had trusted completely without any question at all. One evening, Trevor texted asking for my new address, saying he wanted to drop off a work laptop I had accidentally forgotten at the office. I gave it to him without thinking twice about it. He was my coworker. He had listened to every single fear I had about Dean for weeks. That same night, someone quietly tried my locked back door handle around 8 o'clock. Right after Lily and I had already gone upstairs to bed. Dean saw a car parked oddly down the block from his own porch and texted me a photo, asking if I recognized the license plate. I did recognize it immediately. It was Trevor's car, the same car he drove to lunch every single day, parked somewhere he had no reason to be. Detective Shaw pulled Trevor's employment records the next morning without hesitation. He had accessed my personnel file twice right after I first mentioned Dean's strange behavior. Had been feeding my fear on purpose the entire time, pushing me towards suspicion while quietly learning my schedule, my address, and my daughter's routine. Trevor was arrested 3 days later, found with photographs of my house, printed directions to my street, and detailed handwritten notes about my daily movements. He later admitted he had grown fixated on me months earlier, using my fear of Dean as a convenient distraction from his own quiet surveillance efforts. I sat with that truth for a very long time, realizing the real danger had never been the man I watched, but the one I trusted. Dean held my hand that night on the porch, not saying much, just staying close while I finally let myself feel safe again after everything. Lily still waves at him every single morning now, easy and bright, the way she waves at someone who has simply always belonged to us. I think about those first frightened weeks sometimes, how certain I was about the wrong man entirely, how blind I was to the real threat. Fear taught me the wrong lesson at first. It pointed me toward a struggling man quietly healing, and away from someone smiling right beside me daily. If you understood every single phrase in this story from beginning to end, that means your English is stronger than you probably think it is.